investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Gates will sit for a transcribed interview on June 10th. His interview comes after the committee issued a March 3rd letter requesting his testimony. A spokesperson for Gates said the Microsoft founder welcomes the chance to appear before the committee. Gates has been under heavy scrutiny for his relationship with the disgraced financier. Documents released in December depicted Gates with Epstein, and Gates had previously said that he'd had several dinners with Epstein, though he added he was under the impression that Epstein would use his wealthy connections to fundraise for global health causes. Bernie Bennett, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow up by 275 points, the Nasdaq rose 187, the S&P advanced 41. More on these stories at townhall.com.
If your investments are in a 401k or an IRA, then listen carefully. You spent 30, maybe 40 years building your retirement. The question is, are you about to watch it take a hit you can't recover from? Military escalation in Iran, tariffs in legal chaos, the U.S. dollar under pressure it hasn't seen in years. History is clear. When this much uncertainty hits at once, the investors who moved into gold and silver first came out ahead. Right now, Advantage Gold is offering a free gold investment kit and a free copy of economist Ken Rogoff's powerful new book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Thousands of Americans have already rolled over a portion of their 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver, completely tax and penalty free through Advantage Gold. Don't wait for the next surge to wish you had moved sooner. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
The United Kingdom and Norway are trying to deter Russian submarines operating in the North Atlantic. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma has the story.
Britain, Norway and other countries are engaging in a weeks-long operation to deter Russian spy submarines near undersea cables in the North Atlantic, the UK defence chief says, accusing Moscow of using the distraction of the Iran war to ramp up malign activity against Europe. John Healey says a Royal Navy frigate, aircraft and hundreds of personnel have been involved in tracking a Russian attack sub and 2 spy submarines, aiming at preventing the vessels from carrying out what he calls nefarious operations. NATO countries have repeatedly expressed concern that Russia could use its fleet of spy ships to hit global communications. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters. Punishments have been handed out after an early-for-the-season major brawl in baseball. We hear more on that story from correspondent Gethin Coolbaugh reporting.
Los Angeles Angels designated hitter Jorge Soler and Atlanta Braves pitcher Reynaldo Lopez each received 7-game suspensions from Major League Baseball on Wednesday after they were ejected following their participation in a brawl. Michael Hill, MLB's senior vice president for on-field operations, also announced the players received undisclosed fines. The suspensions were scheduled to begin with Wednesday's game, but will be on hold as each player is appealing. MLB and the MLB Players Association reached an agreement to have Lopez's suspension reduced to 5 games effective immediately. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
More on these stories available at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters.
Live from Little Rock, Doc Washburn.
It's fun when they let me out to go talk to people.
He's like the adorable puppy, you know. He chews on your Christian Louboutins, but somehow you still love him.
They say I'm a distinguished radio talk show.
No insult intended. The news you don't get anywhere else. Doc Washburn.
It's good to be able to get out of the studio so that I can actually kiss hands and shake babies.
You just can't make this stuff up.
As we say here in the natural state, y'all come see us.
You better watch what you say, or you might just find yourself with the lead role. The Doc Washburn Show. Weekday afternoons 4 to 6.
If I don't lie down and take a nap, I'm going to keel over.
Doc Washburn on 101.1. The Answer.
Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc?
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, or you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. The question everybody's trying to figure out. Well, you're right. It's a two-pronged question. Will the ceasefire hold? And will there be an agreement that both parties can agree to? And of course, the answer is no and no. Because the guys in charge of Iran, I don't care how many levels we have taken out above them, they're all on the same page. And, as far as they're concerned, Allah is still Akbar. And they'd rather die, they'd rather be martyrs than to lose face. Okay? No, listen to me. The culture over there is you have to save face. You've heard of honor killings? Well, if the daughter brings disgrace on the family, the idea is not counseling, forgiveness, prayer, none of that. You got to kill her. That's what honor killings are about. You cannot lose face. Well, take that to a national level. Forget about daughters, leaving the reservation, as it were. But they believe that Islam has to take over the world, has to dominate the world. And so we hit them February 28th on a clear blue sky Saturday morning, out of the blue. Obliterate the Ayatollah and close to 50 of their top command, and we keep on taking them out in the weeks since then. And they're publicly saying, well, we're going to keep the enriched uranium, so there's nothing you do about that. And we're like, oh, yeah? Want to bet? All right, yeah, I know. I keep on hearing that the public pronouncement is one thing and the private emissions are something else. And there's a history of these countries saying privately, look, this is what we have to say publicly for public consumption, but of course we'll negotiate it. But see, the problem is eventually the results of the negotiations would have to be announced. That's number one. Number two is the Islamic concept of hudna, Hudna. And what that's about is they can never, ever sign an agreement with infidels like us that they actually honestly intend to keep. It's all temporary. It's all about subterfuge. It's all about deceit. You see where I'm going with this? That is the Islamic concept of hudna. Any kind of agreement that Muslims make with non-Muslims can never be more than temporary and is entered into only because the Muslim side feels it is too weak to conduct open warfare right then and would benefit from a temporary respite from open hostilities. No, you don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up. H-U-D as in dog, N-A, hudna. So that's what. So there is no long-term expectation of success for any kind of agreement. I don't care how many layers we've taken off the top of the Islamic regime in Iran. There's no expectation for long-term success over there. No. No, I know that betting is now legal in Arkansas. I'm getting this stuff on my YouTube all the time. Who's that? That real funny black comedian, the short guy. I can't hear. Kevin Hart is advertising one of them, and the other is being advertised by nondescript folks. But they're two big ones. Okay, I haven't seen them, but anyway, no, there's not going to be an office pool at Salem Media for when this thing goes south, but I would be shocked if it goes the whole 14 days. Because Iran is saying today, hey, because Israel is hitting Hezbollah in Lebanon, then that ices the deal. And of course, we had plenty of audio yesterday from people like J.D. Vance. He's the vice president, by the way. I would think he's in the know. And he's like, no, Israel and Lebanon was not part of the deal. I don't care what they say. But the elephant in the living room about that whole thing is that Iran has said for years that Hezbollah is not a proxy of theirs. They're not bankrolling Hezbollah. And now they're like, hey, that's our boys over there. Yeah, stop cracking on my nephew Hezbollah. So I know, gentle listeners, I should have warned you that the mullahs of Iran can sometimes lie. I hate to be the one to burst your bubble. Speaking of lying about stuff, and we got plenty of audio on what's up with us and Iran, but I just got to get into this right now. Tucker Carlson jumps the shark, attacks Reverend Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse with ridiculous smears and lies. Yep. Thank you to Sundance over at theconservativetreehouse.com. And here's what he says. Apparently, Tucker Carlson thought it would be a good idea to use his platform to attack Franklin Graham, Samaritan's Purse, and the faith-based community. Tucker Carlson made a big mistake. And Sundance, and we don't know his real name, but he's a guy, he's a real guy who's been doing the Conservative Treehouse for many, many years, goes way back, and breaks news all the time. And he's one of us. He has on his homepage Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. He's one of us. And he's aghast that Tucker Carlson is attacking Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse. So anyway, he says, there are situations that we sometimes have a great deal of familiarity with. He says, the work of Samaritan's Purse and Franklin Graham is one of those situations for me. Readers here will know of my time spent as a CERT volunteer during national disasters, most of which involve hurricane relief. He says, I've worked closely with Samaritan's Purse, spent time inside that organization, and know the scale of assistance they provide. They are quite simply the single most effective emergency response mission in our nation. Yeah, I think that's common knowledge. On his podcast, Tucker Carlson and guest bro Nathan Apfel spin a conspiracy tale that's wildly out of touch with reality. At the same time, they mock Christianity and Christian beliefs. I've been telling you, Tucker's not a Christian, while taking aim at Franklin Graham, accusing him, among other things, of profiting from the Samaritan's Purse mission. And he has the link to that episode of the Tucker Carlson podcast. He says, I'm not going to promote it because it's sick, twisted, very dark, and full of flat-out lies. Carlson even goes so far as to claim that Franklin Graham has a billionaire doomsday bunker in Alaska, which he created from the donations to the organization Samaritan's Purse. And He's also claiming the Samaritan's Purse has a $2.5 billion war chest and ownership of private airplanes worth $150 million, which Graham and his leadership used for personal travel and self-enrichment. He continues, let me be very specific and very clear. Every single thing they claim is false, demonstrably false, and easily disproven for anyone who spent even 5 minutes looking at the IRS filings of Samaritan's Purse. And he has a link to that. He says, why Tucker Carlson would choose to attack Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse is a bewildering question. President Trump's decision to ostracize Tucker Carlson from any contact with the White House completely makes sense now. Listening to the dark voices and whispers on your shoulder is dangerous. That internal gnawing inside the spirit of Tucker Carlson is not the voice of God. He says, starting with the conspiracy theory first, Tucker Carlson claims Franklin Graham holds a doomsday bunker in Alaska. That's false. Franklin Graham hosts something called marriage encounter events in Alaska near his own small property, less than a quarter acre. The events are for military husbands and wives who are in desperate need of marital support before the marriage collapses. Usually this is a husband and wife in crisis, often driven by the stress of military service, extended absences, financial pressures, pornography, and or serious disturbing events that have fractured the marriage. Franklin Graham and his entire ministry believe that marriage is a sacrament and every effort must be made between spouses to hold on to their relationship with God. The marriage encounter events are designed specifically to renew Christianity in the relationship and save the marriage. The area in Alaska is not an end times bunker complex. It's a few buildings, cabins on a lake, in a very remote area where the military family marriage encounter workshops take place. There are no distractions, and the remote area is next to a small quarter-acre plot where Franklin Graham has a home. The entire area is very, very remote and does not have municipal electricity. They use generators for power. The 60,000-gallon above-ground diesel storage is brought in to power the generators that provide electricity to the venue. The remote area is only habitable for 3 months in the summer. It's part of the Samaritan's Purse mission. The small native community around the area also benefits from the provision of electricity. And he's got the IRS 990 forms that he links to. He says, next, the issue of compensation. Franklin Graham received $466,000 in base compensation and $407,000 in other reportable IRS compensation. What is other compensation? As required to be reported by the IRS filing, food, lodging benefits, air travel, charter travel, security, logistics for Franklin Graham's mission, and much more, as outlined in the 990 form. Tucker Carlson claims Samaritan's Purse has $150 million in private aircraft. That's false. The $150 million valuation is the total value of all equipment owned and operated by Samaritan's Purse, and includes hospital tents, field hospital equipment, semi-trucks, tools, chainsaws, ATVs, small and medium-sized trucks, hammers, logistical supplies, food, fuel, front-end loaders, backhoes, tractors, pile drivers, portable ACs, lumber, MREs, all the equipment that works. The equipment is all the stuff that is dispatched when Samaritan's Purse goes on life-saving emergency disaster operations, the USA and abroad, with a Christian focus to the mission. They spend $348 million purchasing it. The equipment has depreciated $196 million. It's now worth estimated $152 million. That stuff's not hard to find out. Tucker claims Samaritan's Purse has $2.4 billion in liquid assets. Again, false. As the 990 shows, the $2.4 billion is the total of all Samaritan's Purse's assets: land, building, equipment, accounts, tangible assets, property, leases, everything. Samaritan's Purse took in $1.83 billion, with the vast majority of it coming from donors all around the world, not just the USA. They spent $1.1 billion on operational expenses, disaster relief, and mission work, leaving them with $746 million residual, which is added to the prior year net totaling $2.4 billion in all assets at the end of 2024. The total assets of the organization including all tangible property, equipment, and cash totals $2.4 billion. Now I've got more, and I've got what President Trump said about Tucker and some others this morning. It's all coming up. The Doc Washburn Show continues. 101.1 The Answer.
What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call now at 800-533-6605 for a free consultation. For 17 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and a Christian-owned company. Don't get stuck in the endless cycle of payments. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Christian-owned Total Financial Freedom now at 800-533-6605. That's 800-533-6605. 800-533-6605.
If things don't change, can you imagine America in 20 years? Scary thought, isn't it? The good news is we have the power to take our nation back. Stay right here for all the information you need. 101.1 The Answer.
President Trump has triggered a $200 billion tech disruption, and Wall Street is asleep at the switch. This $200 billion investment in chip technology could make today's artificial intelligence chips obsolete. Technology that will make today's AI data centers a thing of the past, like IBM's old mainframes. While most investors are focused on old-fashioned AI, there are three companies quietly building a trillion-dollar triangle that could transform every tech sector on Earth. These three companies are gearing up to develop and manufacture supercomputers the size of a dinner plate. Institutions like Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street are pouring more than $200 billion into this AI revolution. Investment guru George Gilder has been predicting tech revolutions for more than 40 years, including the iPhone, Netflix, and Amazon. Now he's got his finger on three companies whose technology will change tech forever. Log on to TrillionDollarTriangle.com to find out which three companies are working on what could be the biggest tech disruption since the internet. TrillionDollarTriangle.com. That's TrillionDollarTriangle.com.
Early detection saves lives. I'm Dr. Gwendolyn Bryant Smith. At the UAMS Breast Center, we use advanced mammography with same-day results for both screening and diagnostic studies.
I'm Dr. Rhonda Henry Tillman. Understanding breast health is your first step to early detection.
Make yourself a priority and schedule your mammogram.
Call 501-526-6100 and let's paint Arkansas pink.
Sponsored by this station, the Arkansas Broadcasters Association, and UAMS.
In the world of generators, trust, not marketing, defines success. Northside Power is a trusted name when the fire goes out. We're ranked number one in generator sales, service, and installation. No gimmick and no side hustle. No matter your home's needs, Northside Power installs, service, and monitors generators 24/7. When the power goes out, excuses don't keep your lights on. Experience does. That's Northside Power. Generators isn't something we do. It's all we do.
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. Sound off and talk back 501-401-1011. The article at the conservativetreehouse.com is entitled Tucker Carlson Jumps the Shark, Attacks Reverend Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse with Ridiculous Smears and Lies. Here is the summary. He says, there is no charity more vital, more successful, more faith-based, and functionally responsible for helping our nation in times of crisis than Samaritan's Purse. Importantly, everything they do is above board. Everything they do is easy to research. Everything they do is easy to inquire about and accessible to anyone who would have questions about any of it. Their is no conspiracy. There is no hidden agenda, and there is no dark organizational intention other than to help people spread the word and love of Jesus Christ and show up when people and communities are in crisis. This is what Samaritan's Purse does, and they're exceptionally efficient doing it. The organization is a stickler for detail and financial responsibility, and they are light years more effective than FEMA. Boy, ain't that the truth. I remember the horror stories about FEMA after Hurricane Helene went through Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Western Virginia. No. People instructed not to ring the doorbell to see if a family needed help if they had a re-elect Trump sign in the front yard. I remember all that. Anyway, Sundance continues. I have no idea what Tucker Carlson hoped to achieve with his attack against Franklin Graham and the people at Samaritan's Purse. However, one thing is certain. None of it came from a place of light or a place of good. Tucker Carlson is on a very dark trajectory. And I have dismissed several issues of his in the past, thinking he was just making poor decisions. This attack on Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse, however, is not a poor decision. He is doing this with a willful attempt at deception, bearing false witness, and it will not end well. It is totally understandable why President Trump and the people around him have pushed a great distance from themselves and the dark imaginings of Tucker Carlson, and he has. An embedded tweet from Dan Scavino Jr. from late last night. He said, there are many dedicated people in government who could leave tomorrow and earn tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a month as so-called influencers on social media, but they chose to serve the American people instead, all while the so-called influencers talk excrement all day long. That's a fancy word for something else. And get paid big money for clicks and impressions. We see you. Sundance at theconservativetreehouse.com wraps up his Tucker Carlson article saying, without a fully repentant apology from Tucker Carlson toward Franklin Graham and the entire Samaritan's Purse organization, I will never highlight anything from him again. This time, he has just gone too far. Now, a coworker of mine, a buddy of mine, came in during the commercial break, said, look, I've got a personal friend who is in charge of a lot of the stuff that Samaritan's Purse does, bringing communities back into wholeness after natural disasters. And yeah, everything is responsible. Everything is accountable. Franklin is a stickler for responsibility and accountability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know what Tucker's problem is. We'll have what President Trump said about Tucker and those of his ilk coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues. 101.1 The Answer.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he authorized direct negotiations with Lebanon aimed at disarming Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants and establishing relations between the neighbors. The two countries have technically been at war since Israel was established in 1948. The announcement Thursday offered a potential boost to ceasefire efforts in the region. First Lady Melania Trump has delivered a statement at the White House denying ties to Jeffrey Epstein and knowledge of his crimes. In an extraordinary statement on Thursday, the First Lady denied any association with Epstein and called the online accusations that she was involved in Epstein's crimes baseless lies. On Wall Street, the Dow by 275 points. More details at srnnews.com.
Progressive knows you think the grass is always greener, like maybe you ride a motorcycle. But today, it's raining. So you wish you had an RV, but if you did, you'd have to listen to some guy parked next to it at a campsite plays acoustic guitar. Now, before you start wishing you had a boat, remember, your brother-in-law would invite himself every weekend.
Permission to come aboard, Captain?
But one thing that is greener is the money you could save when you bundle your RV, boat, or motorcycle with your home or auto with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
I didn't switch to Pure Talk just because I wanted to save 50% off the same 5G service I've been paying twice as much for. I switched because I like the idea of being in business with a wireless company that supports our veterans in a meaningful way. Pure Talk also creates American jobs every day by keeping their entire operation in this country. I appreciate that. If you feel the same, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and switch to an American wireless company that actually stands for something.
On Salem News Channel, principled voices are shaping today's conversation. Scott Jennings brings clarity to the toughest debates. Josh Hammer's blistering commentary puts politics and culture on trial. And Alex Marlowe's insight connects us to what matters most. Watch anytime on Samsung TV Plus, Pluto TV, or find us on your screen at snc.tv. 3 new shows, 1 powerful lineup. Salem News Channel, across America.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
What happens when feelings replace morality? If right and wrong are just personal opinions, then who decides why violence, theft, or chaos are wrong? In his new book, If There Is No God, Dennis Prager tackles the biggest questions of good, evil, suffering, and justice, offering clear arguments for anyone searching for moral clarity in a troubled age. If There Is No God by Dennis Prager. Available now at pragerstore.com. That's pragerstore.com.
.1, The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. Here is the official statement from the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, on his Truth social media platform. He says, I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it is wonderful for Iran, the number one state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon. Because they have one thing in common, low IQs. They're stupid people. They know it. Their families know it, and everyone else knows it too. Look at their past. Look at their record. They don't have what it takes, and they never did. They've all been thrown off television, lost their shows, and aren't even invited on TV because no one cares about them. They're nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity. Now they think they can get some clicks because they have third-rate podcasts, but nobody's talking about them. And their views are the opposite of MAGA, or I wouldn't have won the presidential election in a landslide. MAGA agrees with me and just gave CNN a 100% approval rating of Trump, not hand-flailing fools like Tucker Carlson who couldn't even finish college. Oh! He was a broken man when he got fired from Fox, and he's never been the same. Perhaps he should see a good psychiatrist. Or Megyn Kelly, who nastily asked me the now famous only Rosie O'Donnell question. Or crazy Candace Owens, who accuses the highly respected First Lady of France of being a man when she is not, and will hopefully win lots of money in the ongoing lawsuit. Did you know about that? Do you know the First Lady of France is suing Candace Owens? There may be many things she is, but a man is not one of them. Well, no, I mean, you know, she's like 25 years older than the prime minister and started dating him when he was, 16, something like that? I mean, but she's not a guy. She's, that's years ago, and she's elderly now, and perhaps, is no longer in the flower of her youth and doesn't quite look like she used to, but she's not a guy. But Candace is being sued by her, and I hope she takes all Candace's husband's money away. Candace is a beard for the husband. Lavender marriage. No, I don't want to talk about any of that. No, I know they just known each other for a few days and had some kind of online thing and they got married. I know. Well, I mean, no, I'd really rather. No, I just think it would be beneath the dignity of this show to get into rumors about their marriage just because of the horrible things she says about all kinds of other people. That's no, you're not going to drag me into that on a Thursday. I'm sorry. I'm done with that. I digress. Meanwhile, back to President Trump's Truth Social post. He says, actually, to me, the First Lady of France is a far more beautiful woman than Candace. In fact, it's not even close. Or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things and lost his entire fortune, wait for it, as he should have, wait for it, for his horrendous attack on the families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims, ridiculously claiming it was a hoax. You know, he admitted under oath in court that he knew that the Sandy Hook shooting in Newtown, Connecticut was real. He knew that those people were parents whose children had been killed. He knew they weren't crisis actors, which is what he had been claiming on his podcast and radio show. He admitted this under oath in court in the divorce proceedings when his wife was divorcing him. And he said, I'm an actor. I play a part. Just so you know. But I digress. Back to Donald J. Trump on Truth Social. These so-called pundits are losers, and they always will be. Now, fake news CNN, the failing New York Times, and all the other radical left so-called news organizations are hailing them and giving them positive press for the first time in their lives. They're not MAGA. They're losers, just trying to latch on to MAGA. As president, I could get them on my side anytime I want to, but when they call, I don't return their calls because I'm too busy on world and country affairs, and after a few times, they go nasty, just like Marjorie Taylor Brown. I guess he's got a new nickname for Marjorie Taylor Greene. He calls her Marjorie Taylor Brown, Trader Brown. But I no longer care about that stuff. I only care about doing right for our country. MAGA is about winning and strength in not allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. MAGA is about making America great again, and these people have no idea how to do that, but I do, because the United States is now the hottest country anywhere in the world, President Donald J. Trump. So there you go. And I don't blame him. I mean, the nerve of Tucker Carlson getting out there and condemning our president for mocking Islam. Really? The nerve of Tucker Carlson going out there and condemning Protestantism, the nerve of Tucker Carlson going out there and saying capitalism is evil and socialism is Christian. It goes on and on. Yeah, well, that's the reason a lot of people stopped following him. I mean, I was furious when they took him off Fox News. And I interviewed the guy that wrote his biography just a few weeks later. As soon as he was available on my podcast, the video is still on YouTube. And then eventually he goes crazy. Anyway, that having been said, speaking of Islam, I got to tell you something that happened on the 5 yesterday. And I was really disappointed. So Paul Morrow was filling in on the 5, I think for Dana Perino. I think it was the first time Paul Morrow had been on the 5. And he was slamming Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker is a Muslim podcast guy who says America deserved 9/11. He had no problem with the October 7th massacre in Israel. And Democrat politicians will not repudiate this guy. No, we like him. Freedom of speech. Anyway, so Paul Morrow was slamming Hassan Piker on the 5 yesterday, and it went like this. Do we have it? Maybe it's buffering.
And the current blowing through this is a marriage right now of Islamism, not Islam, Islamism and the far left.
No, that would be the edit. I wanted the whole thing. Paul Morrow slams Hassan Piker on the 5. So we get to the edit after that. If we have it. Very good.
This is where a lot of the young people are, and let's recognize what it is, okay? He is doing the stuff that we talked about in the A block. He's using blame Israel as the panacea for every ill in the world. It is Israel's fault, period, end of story. That's what is embedded in this, period. And, by the way, he's not Palestinian, he's Turkish. But that becomes the be-all and end-all excuse for anything he wants to say. And so as a result of 7 October, he can say America owned 9/11, deserved it, et cetera. And all I can say is thank you, Teachers Union, because he's got millions of young men who are following this thing, who know nothing about world history, who know nothing about American history, who have no idea how lucky they are to be here. And the current blowing through this is a marriage right now of Islamism, not Islam, Islamism and the far left. There's a term for it. It's actually called the watermelon revolution, right? The red being the communists and the green being the Islamism. And by the way, that's the same union that gave us the mullahs in Iran. If you look into it, those two were aligned in 1979. This is not unprecedented. And the commonality is America sucks. Let's recognize that.
Okay, let's recognize how disappointing it is that this man is trying to make Islam more palatable. And I was a big fan of Paul Morrow until yesterday. There's no such thing as Islamism. Whenever people try to say, oh, well, no, Islamism is different than Islam on social media. And I always ask them, well, where can I look in the Quran and find out the difference between Islam and Islamism? Where is that written down? They'll never answer it. I mean, I'm on record right now asking Paul Morrow, hey, where Where can I find out the difference between Islam and Islamism? He's not going to answer me. There is no difference. It's outrageous. Now that we set the stage there, and hey, it's great that he's criticizing the Democrats for not having the guts to repudiate this guy. That's fantastic. But he's making it worse, saying there's something called Islamism. All right, now let's listen to Paul Morrow, edit 1, please.
And the current blowing through this is a marriage right now of Islamism, not Islam, Islamism, and the far left.
Isn't that ridiculous? That's absolutely, positively ridiculous. Okay, just to put a point on it. Paul Morrow, edit 2, please.
Islamism, not Islam, Islamism.
How can you just turn your brain off when you're a smart person? Because I always thought that Paul Morrow, patriotic American, was a smart guy. How can he say, oh, no, not Islam, Islamism? Buddy, it's Islam. The violence they commit comes straight out of the Quran. Why won't you be honest about that? You know, it reminds me of on Fox News, whenever they talk about the transgenders, these guys that want to play in women's sports, they always say, well, biological men shouldn't be allowed. It's the only kind of man there is, biological. That's the only kind of man there is. But see, the reason they say it is because they're winking at the transgender folks saying, hey, we realize there's a difference between gender and sex. That's why we say biological men. And that's why they have Bruce Jenner on and call him Caitlyn and pretend he's a female. That's the deal. That is the deal. It's a shame. All right. As always, you know the conversation. Number to call is 501-401-1011. The Doc Washer Show continues. Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
Crazy eyes, I've been a fooling.
If your investments are in a 401k or an IRA, then listen carefully. You spent 30, maybe 40 years building your retirement. The question is, are you about to watch it take a hit you can't recover from? Military escalation in Iran, tariffs and legal chaos, the U.S. dollar under pressure it hasn't seen in years. History is clear. When this much uncertainty hits at once, the investors who moved into gold and silver first came out ahead. Right now, Advantage Gold is offering a free gold investment kit and a free copy of economist Ken Rogoff's powerful new book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Thousands of Americans rolled over a portion of their 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver, completely tax and penalty free through Advantage Gold. Don't wait for the next surge to wish you had moved sooner. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
This is 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Start your morning with a voice you know and trust. Dave Ellswick, bringing you the issues that matter to Arkansas, the news behind the headlines, and conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Then in the afternoon, stay informed and fired up with Doc Washburn, breaking down the biggest stories of the day and what they mean for you. And all day long, hear from some of the biggest voices in talk radio. CNN's Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, and Larry Elder, bringing you sharp insight, lively debate, and the perspective you've been looking for. News, opinion, insight, and the conversations shaping our community. From Little Rock to the natural state and beyond. This is 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
There is an elephant in the living room when it comes to President Trump said about Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, Alex Jones. There's an elephant in the living room. Last I heard, Tucker Carlson's son's still working for J.D. Vance. And J.D. hasn't called out anybody. So, I would think that at some point, something's got to happen there. I just put it that way. All right, now about trying to read the tea leaves, figure out what is going to happen with us and Iran. Trey Yingst, Fox News go-to guy over in the Middle East, who has frustrated a number of us over the years for in any way taking seriously anything that any of the enemies say, including Hamas. he just straight up now saying, doesn't look like Iran's leaders are serious. If we can roll Trey Yingst.
Right now, we're in a 2-week ceasefire. This is not necessarily the end of Operation Epic Fury. It's a chance at an off-ramp. But already the Iranians are starting to go back on the agreements that they made and these commitments they made to American negotiators to temporarily end this conflict. Yesterday, we heard the Speaker of Iran's parliament saying that the issue of enriched uranium will be something that the Iranians will maintain. We also heard President Trump yesterday saying that the Iranians have agreed to work with the Americans to allow an operation inside of Iran to dig up and get rid of the enriched uranium. And so there's still a major disconnect there. And today there was a major statement from the atomic chief in Iran who said the enemy, quote, won't succeed in restricting Iran's enrichment program. And again, at this point, the Iranians do not look serious in their efforts to reach an agreement with the United States. And so this weekend will be incredibly consequential. And if the Iranians continue to go back on these commitments that they made to the Americans as it relates to enriched uranium and also access in the Strait of Hormuz, we are likely looking at a situation where the region returns to war.
Now, if even Trey Yingst is saying, it doesn't look like these boys are serious. If even Trey Yingst is saying, looks likely this area probably will return to war soon. I'm thinking that it would not be irresponsible to say, I think he's got a point there. Makes sense to me. I think he's got a point there. Yeah, that looks like the way we're headed. Okay, let's go to General Jack Keane. No, wait. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I apologize. I goofed up. Okay. Now we'll wait on all that stuff. We'll wait on all that stuff till after the top of the hour news. No, I got something else here from the from the New York Post. Texas man with loaded gun, 100 rounds, tackled by security at Houston church. This is New York Post by way of Fox News. The Texas man armed with a loaded gun and more than 100 rounds of ammunition was tackled by a security guard inside a Houston church before he could open fire, according to police. 23-year-old Emmanuel Asono Mbavwe. Wait a minute. Mbwavi. Yeah, there you go. Mbwavi. He might not be from around here. Was charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, according to court records. Houston police said way back on March 15th, Mbwavi, I'm never going to pronounce it right, arrived at Eden Church, which holds services at Post Entertainment Center in downtown Houston Sunday morning. According to court documents, a member of the church's security team recognized Mbwavi, who had been asked to leave the property roughly 2 months earlier after he tried handing out concerning flyers. Based on the history, the church's pastor asked the security team to monitor the guy. Security guard told police he saw Mbwavi wearing a backpack and following a pastor into the bathroom, then walking in and out multiple times before disappearing into the crowd. According to the court documents, another pastor confronted him, and while the two were speaking, security guard told Mbwavi, holding the grip of a pistol, noticed that he was holding the grip of a pistol in his pocket. The guard told police he saw him reach for the gun and tackled him, believing he was about to harm members of the security team and congregation. Wow. Mbwavi had his cell phone in his hand, was allegedly counting down, leading the guard to believe a bomb could be detonated. The security team and members of the church assisted the guard in restraining Mbwavi. While on the ground, he allegedly shouted, "I'm going to kill the pastor who is a fake prophet. I am a prophet called Warlock." Mbwavi's cell phone was allegedly open to a notes application containing information about killing the church's pastor. He was carrying a .22 caliber revolver loaded with 6 live rounds, along with more than 100 additional rounds in the backpack, according to court documents. Yeah, well, he needs to be dispatched quickly. More coming up. Doc Washer Show continues. 101.1, The Answer.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1, The Answer. Find us at 1011fmtheanswer.com. Download our app, stream us 24/7, or watch us at snc.tv. KDXE, Kamek Village, Little Rock.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. President Trump says American warships and troops will remain around Iran until a real agreement to end the war is reached. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
With the 14-day ceasefire in place, the president said U.S. armed forces won't be returning home immediately. Writing on social media, he said America's military presence will remain until both sides reach a real agreement. A deal, he said, that would prevent Iran from building nuclear weapons and keep the Strait of Hormuz open. The president went on to warn that if the U.S. and Iran cannot permanently end the war, then, in his words, the shooting starts bigger and better than before. Greg Clugston, Washington.
A man is under arrest for the disappearance of his wife in the Bahamas. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Police in the Bahamas have arrested a man for the disappearance of his wife, who vanished while on an 8-foot motorboat in the Bahamas. Officials say 55-year-old Lynette Hooker and her husband Brian Hooker were traveling from Hopetown to Elbow Cay Saturday, when, according to the husband, his wife fell overboard with the boat's keys, causing the engine to turn off. Police say strong currents carried the woman away. Lynette Hooker's daughter, Carly Aylesworth, tells NBC News her mom was an experienced sailor and that it's unlikely she would just fall off the boat. She also says the couple had a history of not getting along, especially when drinking. I'm Donna Warder.
First Lady Melania Trump has delivered a statement at the White House denying ties to Jeffrey Epstein and knowledge of his crimes. The First Lady said online accusations that she was involved in Epstein's crimes are baseless lies. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 275 points, the NASDAQ up by 187. More at townhall.com.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad, real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards. It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-990-6976.
Here's the Wall Street Business Report.
Britain's top diplomat today rejected Iran's push to charge ships for traveling through the Strait of Hormuz.
And no country should be allowed to hijack these international shipping routes that impact the entire world, the entire world's economy.
That's UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper. The U.S. economy did not grow as much in last year's fourth quarter as previously thought.
Downgrading its previous estimate, the Commerce Department reports economic growth from October through December slowed to a 0.5% annual pace. That's down from the prior 0.7% estimate. Economic expansion was slowed by the 43-day partial government shutdown. Rich Thomason, Washington.
Freddie Mac reports a modest pullback for mortgage rates this week, down to 6.37%. Oil prices rose, but stocks did well on Wall Street at the close. The Dow was up 275 points. For the Wall Street Business Report, I'm Bob Agnew.
News and analysis at townhall.com.
Is the update as a way for users to move on from outdated or embarrassing email handles. Changing your address is simple. Go to your Google account page, head to Personal Info, and select Email. You can then enter a new address. Your old address will remain as an alternate. Jason Walker reporting.
Air travelers are facing a new reality of higher fees, fewer flights, and tough choices about whether a trip is worth the cost. The culprit is volatile oil and jet fuel prices that have been swinging since the war in the Middle East started, and fighting near the Strait of Hormuz disrupted global oil shipments.
What if you could take 101.1 The Answer with you everywhere? You can. Download the 101.1 The Answer app and stay connected to the voices you trust, live and on demand. Wake up with Dave Ellswick. Stay sharp with Doc Washburn. And hear from national voices like Chris DeGaulle, Scott Jennings, Hugh Hewitt, Larry Elder, and Mike Gallagher. Breaking news, bold opinions, local insight, national perspective, all in one place, all in your pocket, at work, in the car, on the go. If it matters to Arkansas and America, you'll hear it on 101.1 The Answer. Plus, stream us live anywhere Catch up on podcasts and never miss a moment. Search 101.1 The Answer in your app store and download it today. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Live from Little Rock, Doc Washburn.
It's fun when they let me out to go talk to people.
He's like the adorable puppy, you know. He chews on your Christian Louboutins, but somehow you still love him.
They say I'm a distinguished radio talk show.
No insult intended. The news you don't get anywhere else. Doc Washburn.
It's good to be able to get out of the studio so that I can actually kiss hands and shake babies.
You just can't make this stuff up.
As we say here in the natural state, y'all come see us.
You better watch what you say, or you might just find yourself with the lead role.
The Doc Washburn Show, weekday afternoons 4 to 6.
If I don't lie down and take a nap, I'm going to keel over.
Doc Washburn on 101.1 The Answer.
Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. Let me tell you what's something that's going on here in Arkansas. This is from the official Facebook page for Brian Norris for Secretary of State. He says, under the guidance of legal counsel and others I trust, this morning, the Norris for Arkansas campaign filed for emergency relief and asked the court to preserve election materials and withhold certification of the Saline County election results while major issues are reviewed. This filing is not about bitterness and is not about attacking the local election workers who may have been doing the best they could with the training and direction they were given. It is about whether the election and recount process in Saline County complied with Arkansas law and whether the ballots reviewed can be reliably verified as the same ballots cast by the voters. Wait for it. That is a serious matter. It deserves a careful, lawful, and orderly review. From the beginning, my campaign for Secretary of State has been centered on a simple principle. Elections should be secure, documented, transparent, and worthy of public trust. Laws on the books are important, but they only have meaning when they are enforced. Procedures only matter when they are followed. Records only protect the public when they are properly created, maintained, and available for review. In the filing this morning, we asked the court to preserve the election materials, prevent certification until these issues can be reviewed, and ensure that the legal process can move forward in an orderly way. The proposed order submitted by counsel asks that election materials be secured and that certification be withheld pending further order of the court. The filing raises concerns about whether the standards required by law were met in Saline County. At the heart of those concerns is chain of custody. Oh, buddy, here we go. This issue is larger than a recount alone. It goes to whether there is a reliable and documented process to establish that the ballots seen later are the same ballots that were cast in the election. Without proper transfer records, proper seal verification, proper observation, and proper handling procedures, the public is left with uncertainty where there should be confidence. That is not an allegation of fraud. It is a request for verification. In any serious institution, chain of custody matters. In finance, missing records would not be brushed aside. In the military, secure handling would not be treated as optional. In any other important area of government, documented procedures would be understood as essential. Elections should be held to that same standard. This is also an issue of training, supervision, and enforcement. The deficiencies we have identified do not simply raise questions about one worker or one table. They point to a broader need to ensure that election officials across Arkansas are properly trained in what the law requires and are held to a uniform standard of compliance. A sworn affidavit filed with the case states that Saline County's election coordinator advised that the tape used on ballot boxes came from a roll, that there were no numbered seals, and that the county had not been instructed to do otherwise. See, what you have to do is you have to have those ballots in a box that is sealed. You can't just grab some tape from a roll and say, well, there you go. He says, if true, that does not suggest bad faith by local workers. It suggests a deeper problem, a failure of training, procedure, and enforcement. Election integrity depends not only on having laws in place, but on making sure the people responsible for carrying them out are properly instructed and held to a uniform standard. For some time, Arkansans have heard that our state ranks highly in election integrity. But rankings based on whether laws exist on paper are not enough. The real measure of election integrity is whether those laws are faithfully carried out in practice at the county level. If Arkansas is going to claim a gold standard, then Arkansas must be willing to meet a gold standard. There's also an important lesson in what we have seen in counties across our state. Washington County, Baxter County, White County, Grant County, and Saline County have all demonstrated that hand counting ballots as an audit process is both feasible and affordable. More importantly, it provides voters with greater peace of mind. That is the standard Arkansas should strive for. Hand-marked paper ballots protected by proper chain of custody, counted once by machine for efficiency, and then verified by human beings to ensure the machine was accurate. That approach is not extreme, it is prudent. It is similar to the way a bank operates. A machine may count the money, but a teller verifies the count before completing the transaction. The machine offers speed, but the human verification is what provides assurance. Elections deserve no less. These hand count audits have shown that when ballots are properly secured, when chain of custody is documented, and when human beings verify the machine totals, voters have greater confidence that the final count reflects the will of the people and that the ballots being counted are, in fact, the ballots that were cast. That is the kind of confidence the public deserves. This filing was made because the law should mean something. It was made because procedures should matter. It was made because voters should not be asked to accept uncertainty when the state has promised security, transparency, and accountability. Long before, and again, this is Brian Norris for Secretary of State, the official Facebook post here. He says, long before I ever ran for office, I was fighting for the rights of Arkansans and for a government that follows the law and respects the people it serves. That commitment does not begin or end with one campaign or one election. It's a matter of principle, and it will continue. I remain committed to pursuing this matter in a respectful and lawful manner. My goal is not to create division, but to insist on a system that is worthy of the trust of the people of Arkansas. The voters of this state deserve elections that are not merely declared secure, but proven secure. They deserve elections that are not merely certified, but worthy of certification. And they deserve an election system that gives them confidence that the ballots counted truly reflect the will of the voters. That is the standard I've fought for throughout the campaign, and that is the standard I will continue to defend. Okay, that is Brian Norris on the official Brian Norris for Secretary of State Facebook page about the lawsuit, the emergency lawsuit that they filed this morning, and we'll see what happens with it. But I just felt like that it was, my duty to share that with you. Now, when the Republican establishment of Arkansas says, "Oh, we're so proud that we have been voted number one for election security or election integrity," whichever it is, in the whole country, they hardly ever tell you who gave them that number one ranking. It's the Heritage Foundation. And guess who they gave the number one ranking to in 2020? Georgia, when they stole the election in Georgia. So just so you know, I thought I should share that with you. All right. A lot more coming up, a lot more audio coming up. And no, I don't care what anybody says. We're not going to do an office pool on when the ceasefire falls apart because, I saw a video a little bit ago. Iran hit Saudi Arabia and big explosions and fire and stuff. So, they're testing President Trump's patience. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, more coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
Our Senators John Bozeman and Tom Cotton and Representative Bruce Westerman are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Did you hear Congressman Bruce Westerman on the Dave Ellswick Show?
Every Republican has voted multiple times to fund DHS. Democrats that are not voting to fund DHS, but somehow they're trying to make it Trump's problem and House and Senate Republicans' problem because Democrats won't vote to fund DHS. And every proposal they put out there, they want to leave ICE and Customs and Border Patrol not funded. So how can they legitimately blame Republicans for not funding DHS, even though we're all voting to fund it? So it looks like we're going to use a reconciliation process. I'm not real crazy about that, using reconciliation to fund government agencies, but we're to a point where that may be the only option available if they won't consider funding those two agencies. So you know what the biggest issue was in the last election was a wide open border. So how can they run on that and people legitimately give them credit for it?
Don't miss Congressman Westerman, Wednesday mornings at 7:30 on the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1 The Answer.
In the world of generators, trust, not marketing, defines success. Northside Power is the trusted name when the power goes out. We're ranked number one in generator sales, service, and installation. No gimmick and no side hustle. No matter your home's needs, Northside Power installs, service, and monitors generators 24/7. When the power goes out, excuses don't keep your lights on. Experience does. That's Northside Power. Generators isn't something we do, it's all we do.
Here at 101.1 The Answer, we've got a brand new studio phone number that makes it easier for you to connect with us. Whether you want to talk to Dave Ellswick, Doc Washburn, or any of our other local hosts, it's now easier than ever to let us know your thoughts. Just call 501-401-1011. 501-401-1011. One more time, 501-401-1011.
The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues where you can sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. We talked at the start of yesterday's show about the whole NATO situation and how we have been funding these people for 80 years, and they got to the point where they just decided they were our betters, and they were embarrassed because we're a bunch of rednecks, I guess. I don't think Trump is going to go for that. I don't think he's definitely going to go for the fact that they're refusing to, several of the countries in NATO, refusing to let us use their air bases on the way to Iran. Anyway, General Jack Keane had some things to say about this on Fox. Let's go with General Jack Keane on NATO Cut 1, please.
The problem we have here is quite appalling when we ask for their help. And I'm not talking about what they would eventually do in terms of convoy escorts. I've talked to Mark Rutte myself more than once about that. They would get around to doing that. But we're really talking about something more serious than that, and that is denying us bases to use to participate in a war, or even as something as simple as overflying a country's airspace. This is supposed to be an ally, not even speaking of in a formal political and military alliance like the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Yeah, supposed to be allies. What happened to that? General Jack Keane on NATO, Cut 2, please.
But these are selected countries. This is primarily Italy, Spain, and France, and to some degree the United Kingdom as well. All of the Eastern European countries and the Nordic countries, Sean, they're all in with us. They would give us whatever they have. And I spoke to a couple of those defense ministers themselves. They just don't have much. And as a percentage of GDP, they provide more funding than many of the Western European countries themselves. So I think what the president will do here is certainly he's going to wire brush Mark Rutte, who he has a very good relationship with. They kind of like each other, to be frank about it.
Okay, so every once in a while, you'll have one of these old guys, and he uses a term that I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think I've ever heard that before. I just don't think I've ever heard that before. And so you got, what do you mean he's going to wire brush Mark Rutte? Now, Mark Rutte is the guy who's in charge of NATO, and he used to be the prime minister of the Netherlands. But so I had to look it up. Oh, no, not what is a wire brush. What is it to wire brush someone? Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. I looked it up at home and it was great. And then I forgot that once I got here, you got to look up the meaning of to wire brush someone, not just what is a wire brush. I think we know what a wire brush is, you knucklehead. Google AI. Okay, anyway. To wire brush someone or give them the wire brush treatment. Young Tommy, I'm old enough to be your dad, so you probably don't know what this is either. It means to subject the person to harsh, intense, or abrasive criticism, questioning, or verbal reprimand. It implies a thorough, combative, and often humiliating scouring of their actions or arguments, similar to how a stiff wire brush removes tough debris from a surface. You mean like taking mud off a shoe? Well, pretty much. The context, commonly used in professional, military, or political settings to describe a superior or colleague giving someone a very difficult time. Well, now, but General Keane just said that President Trump and Mark Rutte, head of NATO, actually like each other. So, nevertheless, he's probably going to wire brush him. Okay, well, thanks for giving me the incentive to look up something I never heard of before. All right, Jim Hansen and Jesse Kelly last night on Fox again talking about the uranium. So this should be interesting.
About the uranium, you get mixed signals. Sometimes they're like, all right, we'll talk. And the next thing you know, they're like, oh, we have the right to enrich however much we want.
Yeah, and the words that are coming out of any Iranian spokesperson's mouth or sources are worthless. The real thing is, do they have a desire for the regime to survive? And if they do, they're going to give us the uranium, or they'll give it to a trusted, third party. But there's no way they get to keep it. They know that, and they know if they try to do that and they're too obstinate in the negotiations, as Secretary Hegseth said, that target list has not gone anywhere. They can start that back up at a second's notice.
Yeah. And so again, I think this thing is going to come to a head. And I just don't see how you can reconcile what they want with what we want. Does that make sense? You can't do that, man. Anyway, so I think Jesse puts an exclamation mark on it. You know what? I can't believe I did this. Okay. I confused Jesse Kelly with Jesse Waters. Jesse Kelly is the radio guy who's about 6'8". Jesse Waters is the guy on Fox. So my producer, God bless him, young Tommy, is in there going, what do you mean Jesse Kelly on Fox? No, it should be Jesse Waters. Sorry about that. Anyway, Jesse Waters with proof that they can't keep the peace.
If the truce holds, think about it like this. We crushed their military and their factories so they can't rearm. They can't sail, fly, and their leaders are all dead. We did it without putting any boots on the ground. Recovered 2 airmen that got shot down without any casualties. And we did it within the president's timeline. We're in a grace period in the Strait, and the uranium's up for grabs. Not too bad for 38 days.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you got all those libs out there who are claiming that President Trump is committing war crimes. So let me just take you back. Barack Obama, December 17, 2009, ordered a missile strike on Yemen, killing over 41 civilians, including 21 children and 12 women, 5 of whom were pregnant. And guess what Democrats didn't do on December 17th, 2009? Democrats did not call this a war crime, nor did they try to remove Barack Obama via the 25th Amendment. Okay? So that's the deal with that. Hypocrisy. By the way, earlier in the show, we had President Trump's announcement condemning Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, Alex Jones. And now, Megyn Kelly is doubling down on not defending Erica Kirk against Candace Owens. Megyn Kelly claims the attacks on her not defending Erica Kirk is the, quote, pro-Israel lobby, unquote, finding a new topic to get her on. It's unbelievable to me. Beneath contempt. Let me just put it that way. Beneath contempt. And they sure won't talk about the massacres of the Christians in Nigeria and Congo, but we do. More coming up. 101.1 The Answer.
I want to make the world turn around, make the world turn around, make the world turn around.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. A federal judge has ruled that the Defense Department is violating his earlier order to restore access to the Pentagon for reporters. U.S. District Judge Paul Friedman sided with the New York Times earlier this month in deciding that the Pentagon's new credential policy violated journalists' constitutional rights to free speech and due process. He sided again with the Times in saying that the Pentagon had tried to evade his ruling by putting in new rules that expelled all reporters from the building unless guided by escorts. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he authorized direct negotiations with Lebanon aimed at disarming Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants and establishing relations between the neighbors. On Wall Street, the Dow by 275 points. This is SRN News.
Let's see, if something costs less, a lot less, but people are actually happier with it, that sounds like something to look into. And that's MetaShare. Maybe you've heard joining MetaShare can save you or your family up to $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true. People are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. MetaShare works too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared more than $8 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care, whether you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan that you're happy with. Here you go. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. It's 844-45-BIBLE. That's 844-45-BIBLE. 844-45.
Did you hear Congressman French Hill on the Dave Ellswick Show?
50 years, we have tried sanctions. We've tried selective elimination of their most outrageous military leaders that have fingerprints on attacking and killing Americans, like Soleimani. We've done that under Bush, Obama, Trump 1, even modestly under Biden. We've attempted sanctions, and none of that has compelled them to stop their nuclear program. Again, as I say, President Trump is like, I want to clean out the barn of these persistent challenges that America faces to our national security around the world. And our national security is our trade relations, bilateral economic relations, the safety of our Americans that are traveling as tourists, of our military deployed abroad. And I want to get our allies to do more, whether it's in Europe or in the Gulf states, to defend the region in the Persian Gulf and be the first line of defense. So he's making big strategic decisions.
Congressman Hill, Wednesday mornings at 7 on the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1. The Answer.
The price of gold is surging to new highs. It's already topped $5,000 an ounce. The only question is, how much money will you make when gold hits $6,000 an ounce? Investors like you have made small fortunes off the run-up in precious metals, and not just with gold stocks or ETFs. Many have taken advantage of a little-known gold investment officially released by the U.S. government. Now you can too, when you get our free special report from veteran trader and investor Jim Woods. It's called Gold Wealth Boosters. This new report outlines amazing gold investments that have returned 12 to 26 times more than investing in gold bullion itself. Given the uncertainty in world markets, the investments outlined in Jim Woods' Gold Wealth Boosters report are crucial in 2026, and it's free. To get your free Gold Wealth Boosters report, log on to EagleGoldReport.com. EagleGoldReport.com. That's EagleGoldReport.com.
.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. We're trying to get all the as much of the breaking news and the audio clips in here as we possibly can. Dana Lash. Now, people get her confused with Dana Bash. Dana Bash is the insufferable lib that's been on CNN for ever and ever. Dana Lash, her last name is spelled Loesch, and she is a wonderful nationally syndicated radio talk show host. And we got a couple of cuts from Dana Lash. Cut one, she's talking about what the Democrats want.
They don't want whatever Trump wants, and they want whatever Trump doesn't want. If that makes sense to anybody out there watching. That's literally the only measure. That's the only standard of measure, Jesse, that you can use to gauge these loons, what they would favor in terms of a response. I think that he has handled this perfectly. I've had criticisms of his policies before. This ain't one of them. I like the harsh language. We're talking about, Jesse, let's remind everybody really quickly. We're talking about a regime that has brutalized its own people. Thousands of its own people it killed in 3 days.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about that. Now, the odds are that you are an adult of voting age, probably even drinking age. But if you do have children in the vehicle, you're not going to want them to hear the next cut from Dana Lash, where she talks about how brutal the Iranian regime is to people in prisons. The only thing I can do is just warn you. This next clip is not for the kids. Don't say I didn't warn you. Here is Dana Lash on how bad the IRGC is in the prisons. Cut to.
The IRGC, I'm going to be very frank here, quite literally raped the guts out of nurses at the hospital in Tehran for the crime of treating the injuries of the protesters who were injured by the IRGC. They had to have surgery, including hysterectomies and removal of part of their intestines because their injuries were so horrific. This is what we're talking about. People who wanted to hunt down our pilots, people who have murdered thousands of Americans, who kicked all of this off in 1979 by taking Americans hostage. As far as I'm concerned, there is no strong language that can be used. There's no strong enough language that can be used. My preference is the language of fire. So I think that the way that the president is handling this is a hell of a lot more measured than what I would have done, and probably what some rational Americans with more than 2 brain cells to rub together would have preferred.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, they need to be taken out. They need to absolutely, positively be taken out. And there's no way in the world. Let me put it to you. As brutally honest as I can. Number one, they're not going to keep the ceasefire. There's already video out of them launching a missile on Saudi Arabia and big fire over there. They're not going to keep the ceasefire because they like killing people. Now, Tucker Carlson said recently that President Trump likes killing people. He's a liar, and President Trump has condemned him today and others like him. So Iran, the mullahs are not going to keep the ceasefire. They haven't had, I mean, they've been sending missiles straight through whatever's supposed to be the ceasefire. That's number one. Number two, they're not going to agree to some kind of settlement that gives us what we are demanding. There's no way. They're not going to do it. You cannot lose face in a Muslim society. They'll kill their own daughters. Honor killing. I said that at the top of the show. So they're not going to, after all this time, say, no, we're hanging on to the enriched uranium. And Trump is like, you'll either give it up or we'll come get it. So that's number two. Number three is, even if they were to sign a piece of paper that gives us everything we want, they're not trustworthy. A Muslim country cannot and will not sign an agreement with an infidel country and keep it. The best truce or ceasefire, whatever, is going to be under what they call Hudna, H-U-D as in dog, N-A. That is the Islamic concept of having peace for a little while you regroup and strengthen yourself so you can go back and hit them again. This is not going to be Japan or Germany in 1945. It's just not. It's been a while since I mentioned this, so I probably ought to mention it again. I'll never forget what my father told me, because my dad was in the Navy in World War II. And he said, after we hit the Japanese with nuclear bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that's what it took to get them to surrender. And so General MacArthur told the Emperor of Japan, Hirohito, because he knew that the kamikaze pilots, the suicide pilots, would fly planes down the smokestacks of our ships out there, because they believed that the emperor was God and they would be rewarded for killing themselves by trying to take a bunch of us out. So General MacArthur said, look, if you want to live a long, peaceable life and die peaceably in your old age, as opposed to you being the subject of a Nuremberg trial and executed, here's what you got to do. You got to go on nationwide radio, because, again, there wasn't TV yet. This is 45, not 48. You got to go on nationwide radio and tell all of your subjects, all your citizens, hey, that part about me being God, not so much. I'm really not God. And we have signed surrender papers with the U.S., and now we're going to, be at peace with them. And the emperor's like, so that's all I got to do, and then I'm good? Yeah, that's all you got to do. Okay, cool. Well, see, here's the thing. You can't tell the Ayatollah and the mullahs something like that, because they're like, no, we'd rather be martyrs because we believe in Allah and Muhammad's prophets and the last day and the Quran and all that stuff. So that's why it's a shame. We had this at the top of the show. You got a guy who I believe is a patriotic American. I believe he's a good man. But you got a guy like Paul Morrow who goes on the 5 yesterday and says the problem is not Islam, it's Islamism. That's a made-up term, my friend. That's a made-up term, and you got nothing to back that up. Nothing at all. Now, Tucker Carlson, back in the day, we got, I think, one more audio clip. Back in the day, Tucker Carlson used to warn about the potential dangers of Muslim immigration. Let's roll that one.
Perhaps France is having these problems because it has the largest Muslim population in Europe as a result of its immigration policies. Is it time to rethink immigration policies in Europe? And by the way, also here in North America, to pay attention to the country of origin. Is it a good idea to let a lot of people from countries where violent Islamism is rife come to this country? What do we get out of it?
Of course, these days, he's furious that anybody would mock Islam. He's furious that anybody would have a problem with Islamic immigration. Oh, speaking of which, I bet you haven't heard the breaking news. 4 so-called British hikers caught on Golden Road after illegally entering U.S. from Canada. 4 British nationals were apprehended by U.S. Border Patrol agents in a remote stretch of Somerset County woods, Somerset County, Maine, after illegally crossing from Canada into the U.S. on April 3rd. This according to federal court documents filed this week. One of them captured the whole thing on a GoPro camera, narrating the celebration as the group set foot on American soil. Mohammed Sultan Saleh, that didn't really sound British, narrated on video, I can confirm you are now on U.S. soil, as the group crossed through thick forest just a few hundred yards from the St. Zachary port of entry in northwestern Somerset County, Maine, according to the affidavit sworn by U.S. Border Patrol agent Scott Hanton and filed April 7, U.S. District Court for the District of Maine. Another man of the group, this name should really surprise you, Ali Mohammed Ali Abdullah. Isn't it stupid to use the same name twice? He can be heard on the recording asking, "I'm on U.S. soil?" Saleh replied by showing his phone screen with GPS coordinates displayed and declared, "Now we are in the U.S. We just made it, baby." The bust began with an unlikely pair of informants, two maple sugar workers heading into Canada who spotted four men of apparent Middle Eastern appearance walking south along the Golden Road near mile marker 90 in the wrong direction to be casual hikers. For those unfamiliar with the Golden Road area of Maine, that would include me. It's a 96-mile, primarily unpaved private logging road in Maine, stretching from Millinocket west to the Quebec border. And there's nothing but trees to see for 95.9 of those 96 miles and no cell service. The unidentified maple sugar workers flagged down a U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer at the St. Zachary port of entry at approximately 9:15 a.m. to alert them to the bizarre sighting. By 9:40 a.m., the same workers had returned to the U.S. side with more intelligence. A third man had told them that two men in a gray Nissan parked on the Golden Road were asking passersby for fuel and Wi-Fi so they could contact the people they were supposed to pick up. At 10:13 a.m., that same third man called back the Nissan had turned up near his maple sugar shack at mile marker 80. A Border Patrol agent and the CBP officer loaded up a marked patrol vehicle, headed south on the Golden Road. Mile marker 90, they spotted fresh footprints in the soft dirt. Mile marker 87, they found the men themselves, four individuals attempting to conceal themselves in roadside vegetation. Idiots. Google Maps images of the area helped show just how remote a location the supposed British hikers had found themselves in. Hanton wrote in his affidavit, one of the four men was acting nervously. The two officers took the four men into custody without incident. Although the GoPro recording would show the men indisputably entered the U.S. illegally and intentionally, they initially claimed they were just going for a hike. When questioned about their citizenship, all four told agents they were British citizens. They claimed they didn't know They claimed they didn't know that they had entered the United States, a claim the GoPro recording revealed to be a lie. GoPro, yeah, that's what Hamas used when they killed all those Jews in Israel on October 7th, 2023, and they live streamed it on GoPro. After being transported to the Jackman Border Patrol station, the men were identified as Ali Mohammed Ali Abdullah, 18 of Liverpool, England, Hamid Mohammed Nagy, Ibrahim Ayub Khan, and Mohammed Sultan Saleh, all British nationals, according to court documents. Their stories, though, didn't hold up. And we'll tell you why they didn't hold up coming up as the Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock Superior Talk Station, 101.1, The Answer.
It's the hardest thing to do with all I said,
I'd like to tell you about a man named Phineas who as a child survived the Holocaust. Phineas survived because Christians hid him from the Nazis, risking everything to save his life. Today, Phineas is in his 80s. He can no longer stand on his own or even leave his home to receive medical care. And when sirens sound and missiles fall, he doesn't have the time or the strength to reach safety. But once again, Christians are helping to save his life. Through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, a mobile clinic brings doctors and medicine right to Phineas's doorstep, providing care that he otherwise would not receive, especially during a time of war. Phineas said, "Christians saved my life during the Holocaust, and now again, they are helping me." As Israel's Holocaust Remembrance Day approaches, remember these precious children of God by lifting them up in prayer, asking for his protection, his comfort, and his peace. Stand with Israel in prayer by visiting supportifcj.org. That's supportifcj.org.
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is. You can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. The craziest thing was believing that your dad knew everything. So as a dad, you felt like you had to know everything. You had to get everything right. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then, it kind of starts to work itself out. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
.1 The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. Sound up and talk back 501-401-1011. So this interesting story we've got here about the guys that were found, the Muslim guys from the UK found having crossed over into Maine illegally. This is from something called the Robinson Report over on Substack. Just so you know, I want to give credit where it's due. So the stories didn't add up on these guys. Abdullah declined to answer questions. Nagy claimed he was just going on a hike with the group. Saleh echoed that line, but federal agents had already found the GoPro footage on his phone, along with a series of telling Google searches conducted on April 3rd, like Bangor from my location, Bangor, Maine, Boston from Bangor, New York from Boston, and critically, is St. Zachary border crossing still used, the one near Quebec Golden Road. Quebec, of course, being the province in Canada on the other side of the line there. That last search would appear to put to rest any claim that Saleh was unaware he had crossed an international border. The gray Nissan the maple sugar workers had described as still sitting near mile marker 80 when agents returned out of gas. Two men were inside. They identified themselves as U.S. citizens before the driver could fully exit the vehicle. The Border Patrol officer observed him reach under the driver's seat. When agents checked, they found a loaded 9mm handgun. The two men in the Nissan were taken to Jackman as well in connection with what the affidavit describes as a suspected alien smuggling event. The passenger of the vehicle later admitted to investigators that the driver had intended to pick up one of the four men, someone the driver said he had dropped off the same Golden Road area approximately 30 days earlier, according to Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent Pierre Matthew, who briefed Hampton. A forensic review of the driver's cell phone found text messages with an individual believed to be one of the four men discussing expected arrival times and pickup logistics, according to the court filing. Federal prosecutors' motion for pretrial detention adds a further wrinkle to the story. Abdullah, identified as the lead defendant in the criminal complaints, had previously run afoul of U.S. immigration authorities. His application to extend his U.S. visa was denied in March of 2025, and he departed the country in May of 2025. Prosecutors allege that Canadian authorities have recorded his arrival in Canada on April 1st, 2026, 2 days before the Maine crossing, traveling on a UK passport. The motion states law enforcement authorities are attempting to ascertain the purpose of his travel to Maine. Oh, I bet I know. I bet they are big fans of the Boston bombing and 9/11. All four men are charged with one count each of entry without inspection, a Class B misdemeanor under 8 U.S. Code 1325, which carries a maximum sentence of 6 months of federal prison and $5,000 fine. And they list the judge the case is assigned to. Abdullah appeared before the court April 7th, waived his right to both a preliminary hearing and a detention hearing, consenting to remain in federal custody pending trial. Well, I guess he gets 3 squares a day, right? The court accepted his waiver and ordered him detained. Trial is scheduled to begin June 3rd. The 3 co-defendants, Nagy, Khan, and Saleh, have related cases pending in the same district. Nobody else telling you about this stuff. I keep telling you, they're going to hit us. I keep telling you, I'm trying to warn you. Over Jihad Watch, my buddy Robert Spencer has the article. Muslim pleads guilty to plot to kill Jews in biggest U.S. jihad attack since 9/11. Now says he is sorry. Oh, yeah. Sorry he got caught. No, he's got the link to the Associated Press story from New York. Pakistani man pleaded guilty to a terrorism charge Wednesday, saying it was a morally reprehensible idea to support the ISIS group by plotting to use automatic weapons to kill Jewish people at a Brooklyn center. 21-year-old Mohammed Shahzeb Khan said he answered ISIS's call for Muslims to kill Jewish people by plotting to attack the Jewish center in October 2024. Well, it sounds like they caught him by the grace of God. In a release, Assistant Attorney General for National Security John A. Eisenberg said Khan planned a mass shooting to coincide with the anniversary of October 7, 2023 Hamas attacks, with the explicit goal of killing as many Jews as possible. Eisenberg said Khan, also known as Shahzeb Jadun, because he couldn't find a stupider sounding name, had boasted that he would carry out the largest attack in U.S. soil since the September 11th attacks. He told the judge he pleaded guilty to a single charge of trying to commit acts of terrorism, transcending national boundaries, that he was going to cross the border from Canada to the U.S. September 2024 with the intention of killing Jewish people in Brooklyn. But he said he now regrets his plan, which included renting a space next to the Jewish center. He said, I was not raised this way, adding what he planned to do was wrong. I bet he was raised this way. I'll bet you he was. All right, I'm Doc Washburn. The great Dave Ellswick scheduled to be with you at 7:06 tomorrow morning right here. And I'll see you tomorrow at 4:06, God willing, on Little Rock's premier talk radio station, 101.1, The Answer.
This is 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to